Picture yourself swimming in the ocean, totally unaware that a massive shark is lurking right beside you. Sharks tap into one of our deepest, most primal fears, even though actual attacks are much rarer than we imagine. But when they do happen, it's absolutely terrifying. Now, let's take a look at 20 jaw-dropping shark encounters that were all caught on camera. Number 20. Shark chomping on whale. To help ease into the video, as we know many of you won't want to see a bunch of shark attacks on humans, let's begin with a unique video filmed on Long Island. Some fishermen were out doing their thing when they noticed a dead whale floating in the water. It was so big, in fact, that they actually thought it might be a boat. That is, until they got a whiff of the clearly long-dead creature. They went to examine it, and that's when they saw a fin poking out of the water. As they continued to film, they soon realized the creature was none other than a great white shark. The instincts of the fishermen, who were ironically out on the water shark fishing themselves, legal in certain places under certain conditions, was to put their camera in the water to see if the shark was in action. Oh, and some action is exactly what they got. Not only did the shark nudge the camera a few times, it actually attacked the boat by trying to bite into the motor. After getting bored with the boat, that shark then went to the whale and didn't just bite it for a small amount of time. The fishermen claim it was actually dining on the whale for around 6 hours. They didn't drop all of that footage, that would be boring, but they did show it in the clip with their GoPro. They even noted there were other sharks in the water snacking on the whale at the same time, but the great white was the biggest of the lot. Now, if you're curious as to why the great white, and other sharks for that matter, are so open to eating the whale, well, it was simply food to them. Many species of shark don't actually care how they get a meal so long as they get one, and to that end, if they find something that's easier to eat without putting a whole lot of effort into the hunt, that's exactly what they're going to do. There are even some sharks that eat inedible things like the junk left in the ocean by humans, which is possibly why the great white went after the boat's motor in the first place. Either way, the fishermen ended up fine, and they eventually got a viral video. Number 19. Bull shark versus fisherman. Remember when I said that divers are at risk of being shark attack victims? Well, here's the proof of that. Now, to be fair, this guy is from Queensland and wasn't just a diver, he was also a spear fisherman. You can see where this one is going, because he was out in the deep water doing some spear fishing when he suddenly turned and found himself being charged at by a bull shark. Now, for the record, bull sharks are one of the most likely kinds of sharks to attack a human, and as the video would highlight, they are not afraid to race toward their potential prey to try and get a meal. Fortunately for this fisherman, the bull shark literally charged into the tip of the spear gun he was holding, and you can see the blood pouring out of the shark itself. Thankfully, he did the right thing and let go of the gun so he could get to the surface and put a good distance between himself and the shark. He even admitted that he never expected a bull shark to do that and was still processing what had happened when interviewed about it later. In another case, you can be glad that somebody got away from a shark, but you can't deny that this could have gone much differently if he was positioned slightly differently. If that bull shark had charged from behind or even to the side, the entire thing could have gone so much worse. Thankfully, things did not go worse, but it's also something to ponder when you go diving into shark-infested waters. Number 18. Surfer versus shark. Now, there are certain kinds of people who are more in danger of shark attacks than others. For example, divers are at more risk because they're fully submerged in the waters where sharks may reside. They also spend a lot more time underwater than the common swimmer. Another example is surfers, who sometimes go far from the beach to catch the wave they want to ride. But if they go out too far, they could also find themselves in danger, like in the case of this surfer. Meet Mick Fanning, a legend of the surfing game who is now retired but not before becoming a bona fide legend, especially during one competition where he was actually attacked by a shark and able to make it go away in part by punching it in the face. Yes, it's true. You can see it happen in real time in this video. By his own account, he was doing just fine when he suddenly felt his leg getting pulled under, only to see the shark right up next to him, beginning to drag him via his leg rope. That's when Fanning gave it a few swift punches to the face, including one to the nose, but the shark kept trying to pull him down. Thankfully, the reason he escaped was that his leg rope somehow got cut, most likely by the shark's razor-sharp teeth, which allowed him to get free. By the time he resurfaced, rescue personnel reached him and got him to safety. While overall he was fine, this highlights the true and immediate danger sharks can pose when they lock onto someone. The fact is, Fanning did not provoke the shark. He was simply there to surf, as were many others that day. Yet that shark came in and tried to drag him into the depths. If the leg rope hadn't been cut, he might not have gotten away at all. Thankfully, luck was on his side that day. Oh, and for the record, punching a shark in the nose doesn't exactly make it run away. Its nose is actually pretty tough. Always go for the gills or the eyes instead, because they're the most sensitive areas. Number 17. Sharks versus submarine. In the documentary series Blue Planet 2, some scientists took a submarine down 700 meters below sea level to investigate a whale carcass that had landed there. As they did, They soon found themselves surrounded by sharks, not unlike a previous entry. The sharks decided to dine on the whale, and the submarine recorded every second of the gnarly footage. The problem here is that when sharks get into a feeding frenzy like what took place here, they tend to get a little more aggressive, leading them to think the submarine was coming for the whale meat, so they decided to attack it. The team even noted that while they were trying to back up, one of the sharks was able to push them forward. That's the size and power of the sharks they were dealing with. Eventually, the shark did back down, and the crew was able to relax, not having to fear a watery grave. Number 16. The hammerhead shark versus a kayak. I've already shown you plenty of shark species, but here's one of the more unique ones, the hammerhead shark, which is both the enemy of man and of dolphins. This particular attack happened in 2015 when a man was out kayaking near Santa Barbara, California, and was suddenly rushed by a hammerhead shark. If you take a close look at the kayak itself, you'll notice the man isn't in the best protected position. His legs would be very exposed if the shark flipped the kayak over. Thinking quickly, the man used his oar to try and beat the shark off, but true to the shark's nature, it just kept coming back. He had to strike the shark about 20 times before making a break for it and getting back to the shoreline. Even as he fled, the shark apparently kept close, just in case an opening appeared. That is freaky in every single way, and the footage perfectly showcases the circling approach many sharks take when hunting prey. The kayaker ended up fine, but if he hadn't had the presence of mind, things could have gone a whole lot differently. Now it's time for today's topic. A kayaker paddling through the waters off the coast of Baja California, Mexico, had a terrifying encounter with a shark so massive that experts are calling it a living monster. The kayaker, who was enjoying a calm afternoon on the water, was stunned when the enormous creature emerged from the depths, its shadow stretching far beyond the length of his kayak. The shark, estimated to be over 50 feet long, swam just beneath the surface, its massive dorsal fin slicing through the water like a blade. The kayaker managed to capture the encounter on his GoPro, and the footage has left scientists and locals in shock. This is not a normal great white, one marine biologist stated. Its size and appearance suggest it could be a mutant or an entirely unknown species. The shark's body was covered in scars, and its movements were slow yet deliberate, as if it was observing the kayaker. Locals have since dubbed it El Monstruo del Mar, or the monster of the sea. The encounter has sparked fear and fascination, with many wondering if this massive predator is a one-time anomaly or evidence of something far more mysterious lurking in the ocean's depths. Number 15. Caged shark death. Remember that first shark cage attack I talked about from Guadalupe Island? I stopped talking about that one because the event had a much darker twist that once again brought activists out against cage diving. Specifically, in the full footage, the great white shark is trying to get some bait dangling from the cage, but because of the cage's window size, it actually gets its head trapped and dies from the injuries sustained while stuck. The activist who posted it called out the company behind the cage diving business, noting negligence and other issues that led to the shark's death. That's another thing people need to be aware of. While it's human nature to want to get close to something exciting like sharks, we have to remember that no matter how scary they are, sharks are a natural part of this world. They deserve to be here just as much as humans do, and mistakes like this can harm their population numbers. The last thing we need is to cause yet another animal to go endangered or extinct. Number 14. Great white versus kayakers. I previously showed you a hammerhead shark going up against a kayak, and now I'll show you a great white shark that went up against a set of kayakers. Apparently, the two were out fishing when one noticed a dorsal fin popping up out of the water. Knowing it was a shark, the one filming went to his friend to try and make themselves seem bigger. The great white, confirmed later, circled the boats for a while, and they had to get creative to escape. Specifically, they found a section of seals nearby and led the shark to them. And sure enough, the shark, distracted by the seals, simply went away. Now, while I don't condone using seals as bait, it's fair to say that if the great white had attacked those kayaks, they might not have made it out alive. Number 13. By shark cage. The next clip comes straight out of Shark Week, and it highlights how sometimes people overthink the things they make to protect themselves from sharks. As you can see here, during a unique Shark Week special, they placed a diver into a special kind of plastic shark cage out in the open water, full of great white sharks. Sure enough, a massive great white came in, swam around the cage for a bit, and then tore it to pieces. That led to the swimmer racing away for his life, as the great white would have totally taken him out if given the chance. Thankfully, that didn't happen. You have to wonder why they thought a basic shark cage made of plastic could contain the power of a great white's bite. It seems complacency even runs with the Discovery Channel. Number 12. Shark tubes. This one may seem like a hoax, but I promise it's absolutely real. If you didn't know, the reason the internet can send and collect data worldwide is that there are fiber optic tubes connecting continents in the ocean. They're massive and had to be placed carefully to avoid getting caught in the ocean's terrain. However, that also means they're susceptible to shark attacks, which happen much more often than you'd think. For whatever reason, sharks keep finding these cables and chomping into them, which obviously disrupts the internet at times. Companies like Google then have to go in and fix them. Number 11. Shark versus chum bag. Have you ever wondered how certain people attract sharks to film or study them? The answer is chum. Remember, sharks are predators that want their next meal and don't care where it comes from. The scent of chum in the water is like ringing a dinner bell for these animals, and it doesn't take long before they start circling, drawn in by the promise of an easy feast. Sometimes, you'll see the water start to churn as multiple sharks compete for the same spot, their powerful bodies slicing through the waves. The anticipation on the boat builds as everyone waits to see which shark will make the first move, and it's always a mix of excitement and a little bit of fear. When the shark finally lunges, it's a burst of raw power, jaws clamping down with enough force to snap the thick rope holding the chum bag. In this case, a boat had a chum bag off the side, and a shark smelled it, found it, and bit down so hard it ripped the bag right off the boat. Even the people on board were shocked. It felt so sudden. Again, it shows you can't underestimate what a shark can do. Number 10. The oceanic white-tip shark attack. The next one is absolutely no joke and another example of how a shark attack almost led to the loss of human life. Some British divers were in Egypt and filming in the Red Sea when they came across a set of oceanic white-tip sharks. These sharks can be dangerous if you're not careful, and the divers did their best to do so. The water was crystal clear, and you could see the sharks gliding just beneath the surface, their movements almost hypnotic. Tension was high as the group tried to keep their distance, but the curiosity of the sharks was obvious. They kept circling closer, drawn in by the divers' bubbles and camera lights. One diver, in particular, seemed to catch the eye of a larger white tip, and you could almost feel the shift in the water as the shark zeroed in. The moment the attack happened, everything went from calm to chaos, with the diver's scream echoing through the water and the rest of the group scrambling to help. The problem was that one of those divers got the attention of one of these sharks, and it circled around, came right at the diver, and then bit him on the leg. The pain of the event was so much the camera actually captured his scream despite him being underwater. The man did end up surviving, but the attack by the shark was so great that it actually tore his calf muscle right off of his leg. Number 9. Shark jump. If you watch Shark Week enough, you'll eventually see incredible slow-motion footage of sharks leaping out of the water with prey in their mouths or to jump up and catch birds out of the air and then slam back down into the water. That's a nice, how you going to do it? This is actually a tried-and-true hunting technique, and it shows that no matter how big they are, they can get some serious air like Michael Jordan. But sometimes, those jumps don't go exactly as planned, especially when humans are involved. In this particular story, the chaos started when the fishing line went taut and suddenly the water exploded as the shark launched itself skyward. The people on the boat barely had time to react before the shark came crashing down right onto their deck, flopping and thrashing in a total frenzy. You can imagine the panic as everyone scrambled to avoid the snapping jaws and powerful tail, with gear and bait buckets flying everywhere. For a few wild moments, it was like a scene straight out of a slapstick comedy, except with a real, very angry shark. The people eventually did get the shark back into the water in the end. Number 8. Florida shark attacks. Is it odd that there are shark attacks in Florida? Ask yourself that question honestly. I mean, after all, it's Florida. They have a whole lot of coastline, not to mention they're literally near the Atlantic Ocean where there are plenty of sharks, and sure enough there have been plenty of attacks on various beaches there. What's wild is that some of these attacks happen in broad daylight, with lifeguards and crowds all around, making it even more shocking when someone suddenly gets bitten. In one case, beachgoers actually saw the fins slicing through the surf before anyone realized what was happening, and people started scrambling out of the water in a panic. The local news stations were all over it, interviewing witnesses who described the chaos and the eerie feeling of seeing two sharks so close to shore. Some folks even claimed the water turned red for a moment, adding to the drama and fear. It's the kind of thing that makes you think twice about wading out past your knees, even on a perfect sunny day. One of the more surprising ones was when there were 3 people attacked by 2 sharks on the same day on 2 different beaches. Clearly those sharks were coordinating and we are all doomed as a human species. While they all survived with various levels of injury, a statewide warning was put out to be on the lookout for sharks in the end. Number 7. Bali scuba party. I have to admit that this is not the best footage of a shark event, but I do know what happened here, and it happened off the coast of Bali where a rather large scuba crew was going through the water, and that's when they found themselves looking at about a 5-meter-long great white shark. The initial reaction was pure disbelief, as most divers in Bali expect to see reef sharks or maybe a manta ray, not a massive apex predator from colder seas. Some of the divers later described the moment as surreal, with the shark's enormous silhouette gliding silently just beyond the edge of their lights. Heart rates spiked as the group instinctively clustered together, trying to make themselves look bigger while keeping an eye on the shark's every move. The underwater terrain became their lifeline, with some ducking behind coral outcrops and rocky ledges, hoping the shark would lose interest. For a few tense minutes, the only sounds were the hiss of regulators and the frantic thumping of adrenaline. Naturally, upon seeing this, the group quickly swam away and even used some of the underwater terrain to get to a safer location before then continuing on with their expedition. One of the more unique elements of this encounter was that the great white shark typically stays in colder waters, which are not the kind that you'll find in Bali, so then that begs the question of why the shark was actually there. Did it just so happen to wander into the place and feel that it was a good place to hunt? It's actually difficult to say, but what it also proves is that you can never take a body of water for granted because they truly can happen anywhere if you're unlucky and the right species are nearby. Number 6. Tiger shark versus swimmer. Now we head back to Australia to see another shark attack on a person, where this time it's from a more higher up angle. In this case, someone's flying a drone over a beach in Perth and just so happened to spot a tiger shark getting closer and closer to a nearby swimmer. The drone footage is almost cinematic, with the shadowy outline of the shark gliding silently through the turquoise water. You can see the swimmer completely oblivious, just floating and enjoying the day, while the drone hovers above, capturing every nerve-wracking second. The tension builds as the shark closes the distance, its movements slow and deliberate, almost as if it's deciding what to do next. The drone operator's hands must have been shaking, knowing they were witnessing something that could turn tragic in an instant. At one point, the shark is so close you can see the difference in size between it and the swimmer, making the whole scene even more surreal. The good news is that despite getting really close to that person, the tiger shark decided not to go in for a bite and it just swam on by. That was hardly a guarantee though, and one could only imagine what the drone operator may have been thinking as they were likely a ways out and couldn't warn the person as they spotted this. It's honestly pretty eerie to see this footage of the shark silhouette getting closer and closer to a person who is totally unaware of the danger that they're in, only to sign relief that it doesn't go to the darkest place possible. Apparently there were multiple shark sightings in the area that year, and many people refused to swim at that location because of it. Number 5. Great white versus boat. Earlier on I showed you a great white shark briefly going after a boat before deciding to feast on a whale. This time the attack takes place in Tasmania and it's much more aggressive. It begins calmly as boars are taking footage of the shark in question, only for it to then vanish and then ram into the boat. The sudden impact sent cameras and gear flying, and for a moment, everyone on board was completely stunned, unsure if the hull had been breached. The shark's dorsal fins sliced through the water as it circled back, almost as if it was sizing up its next move. One of the boars shouted for everyone to hold on, just in case the shark decided to strike again. The tension was so thick you could almost feel the fear radiating from the crew, each person gripping whatever they could find. The boat rocked violently, and the sound of the hull creaking under the pressure made it clear just how powerful these animals can be. It's needless to say when they got their bearings back they then rushed away from the scene, just in time for the shark to briefly splash near them, as if to allow them to know that this particular shark did all that damage. And if you're curious, sharks can pierce boats if they get up to true ramming speed, and based on the size of this boat it could have done some serious damage indeed. Number 4. Great white versus cage. Now I talked about cage diving with sharks a little bit ago, but I didn't show you how sharks, including the great white shark, will sometimes interact with those cages. You have to remember the point of these adventure things are to go and put people in the water with the sharks so that they can get up close and personal with them and see them in their natural environments. However, at Mexico's Guadalupe Island, this video was taken of a great white shark that straight up rammed a shark cage while trying to get into it. The impact was so intense that the entire cage rattled, and you could see the bubbles shoot up as the diver inside clung to the bars for dear life. For a split second, the shark's massive jaws actually got wedged between the bars, its teeth scraping against the metal and sending chills down everyone's spine. The crew on the boat above started shouting instructions, frantically trying to figure out if they needed to pull the cage up or wait for the shark to back off. The diver inside could only watch as the shark thrashed, its tail whipping the water into a frenzy. It was a heart-pounding moment that made everyone question just how safe those cages really are. As you can probably guess, the person inside was hoping that it didn't break through, and thankfully it didn't, but that's not really the point. This isn't the first time that a shark cage has been attacked like this. There's plenty of footage of this taking place in many places all over the world. Sharks are strong, and if they do get the right speed going underwater, they can actually break through all but the strongest of cages. In fact, that almost happened to Mythbuster Jamie Hyneman when he was doing some cage diving during their Shark Week special, but there was a twist to that needs to be noted. Number 3. Shark versus dinghy. The next video is interesting in multiple ways. First, it's another one of a shark attacking a boat, in this case, a dinghy that was attached to a larger vessel. It should also be noted that the people on this dinghy are trying to film a documentary for the Discovery Channel, which aired in 2014 during Shark Week. The reason I'm showing it to you isn't just because it fits the video's theme, but because of the intent that some used when posting it. A popular pastime with sharks is called cage diving. It's where people get in shark-proof cages and then go into waters that are full of sharks so that they can see them in action. You might know of places like South Africa and New Zealand which partake in this industry, and they rake in some serious cash because of it. This footage was used by protesters to highlight how cage diving gets a shark used to people and boats and naturally makes them want to get closer to them, leaving people open to attack. Many have fought back on this, and it's important to note that cage diving does still exist today, but it does raise interesting questions. We all know that animals like sharks evolve and adapt to what's happening in their surroundings, and that's why there are shark attack capitals around the world, because sharks know that the area is going to be full of people and things to eat in certain places. So if they slowly realize that something like a cage with a person in it means that other people and boats are around, well, that might help to trip a light bulb moment and make the shark believe that it's time for a snack. Make no mistake, sharks are intelligent creatures. They're able to detect movement from a long distance away, race towards a target, so that they can then get a meal and a whole lot more. The last thing that anyone needs is for them to get wise and then realize when a potential meal, meaning you, the human, may be closer than you think. Number 2. Tiger shark versus diver. Now we head to Fiji for this next piece of footage, and it's easily the most violent that I'll show you in the context of a shark actually attacking a human. In this case, a dive master was with a group of people underwater when a tiger shark full-on attacked the entire group. At first, the dive master was able to keep it from doing a whole lot, but then the shark just straight up went for one of the divers and bit down on their head. The water erupted into chaos as bubbles and limbs flailed in every direction, with the group desperately trying to keep their composure. For a moment, the only thing visible was the massive shadow of the tiger shark as it circled back, its jaws still open and ready for another strike. The diver who was bitten was in shock, barely able to process what had just happened, while the others tried to form a protective barrier around him. The tension was so thick you could almost feel it through the screen, and every second felt like an eternity. Some of the divers tried to use their cameras and fins to distract the shark, hoping to draw its attention away from their injured friend. The only reason the footage moves from the action at one point is that the entire group is trying to get the shark off of him, and if you look at the footage closely, you're going to notice the tiger shark is incredibly huge. Thankfully, the dive master was able to get the shark away, but not before it took the man's mask and hoodie off and left him with a nasty cut. That man would have likely died if the rest of the team had not been there to assist and save his life. Number 1. Shark versus college student. Before you ask, no, this did not happen on spring break like certain horror movies would have you believe. Instead, this young college student was off diving with friends when he felt something take the fin off of his foot. To his surprise and horror, it was a shark, and it bit down on his foot to get that fin off. The water instantly turned cloudy with sand and blood, making it hard for anyone nearby to see what was happening. His friends, realizing something was wrong, started shouting and frantically swimming toward him, but the chaos only seemed to agitate the shark more. For a split second, he locked eyes with the animal, feeling a mix of fear and adrenaline that he'd never experienced before. The shark circled back, clearly not ready to give up its new target, and the tension underwater was almost unbearable. He could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears, even through the muffled sounds of the ocean. Thankfully for him, he was spearfishing at the time, and while he dropped the gun initially, he was able to get it back and attack the shark when it rushed in towards him, and that would force the shark to go away. The student did receive some injuries to his foot, but otherwise would be okay. But if he didn't have that spear gun, the shark would have likely kept on attacking him. Which of these shark encounters did you find the most terrifying? Are there any that you think could have ended much worse for the people involved? If you know of another shocking shark attack that deserves a spot on this list, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to check out the other cool videos popping up on your screen, and I'll see you next time.